The season is ending, and the playoff narrative is a mess.
We've got the Broncos suddenly dominating the league, and teams that have been historically great are folding like a lawn chair.
Welcome to Two Down Territory. I'm Adam.
And I'm Jonathan. Today we're putting the national media and that one friend of yours who thinks he knows ball to the test.
Forget history, forget hype. We're telling you the top 10 teams in the NFL right now.
And I'm telling you, just a little bit better than Adam, who can actually hoist the Lombardi.
So stop wasting your breath arguing with your friends, because we have all the answers right here. Me more than Jonathan.
It's Two Down Territory. Let's rank them.
2 inches short, maybe less. Story of my life.
It's
been a while since he's seen a hole that big.
If you say he's a bust and you end up right, it's not because you're some genius. It's because you got lucky.
How I feel, man? Tell me how I feel, El Freaky.
We pray that these bird 30s would nourish us and allow us to throw the ball.
They got to go get this bread.
If you suck, you might as well suck with purpose. And
So, Adam, I mean, I just officially know more ball than you. That's what the streets are saying. And by streets, I mean me.
by streets, I mean my mom.
Whoa. That's unnecessary.
Yeah, no, that's
at a time
untrue.
Like this.
By the fact of all of our biggest disagreements in the offseason, I've been correct about. But we can forget that and just point.
Yeah, just gloss over that point. My goodness. As if my biggest riser isn't, very high on this list.
Listen, that was the easy take, all right? This is besides the point. Today we're going to be doing a top 10 ranking. And I think that this is obviously relevant because we're at the end of the season. And the only thing that matters right now is playoff football. Who's going to get into the tournament? And who do we think is going to win the tournament? So, Jonathan, when you're making this top 10 list, what are the biggest things that you're looking at?
Well, some of the biggest things that I'm looking at is that you and I differ, Adam. You like these things that are called statistics and statistical analysis, whereas I myself am more of a man of the people, a man of culture, and I believe in the football gods. I believe in football vibes. And that's kind of what I look at, because although I will say at the same time, only one of these teams that I have on here, and we'll find out very shortly, is in question of making the playoffs. Obviously, we're 3 weeks to go, and the playoff picture for the most part, especially in the AFC, is pretty much set. Right now, we're just concerned about seeding, which is kind of why we wanted to do this now, because we're 3 weeks out and we pretty much know the teams that are going to be here. And I'm sort of looking at, when it's all said and done, who can I envision hoisting a Lombardi trophy and ranking it by that? Like, that's my rule for measuring everything here. It all comes back to, could I actually picture them holding a Lombardi trophy?
Yeah, so you talked about how I'm kind of a stats guy, and that's true. I do like statistical analysis, and I think that they do tell a broader picture. But in this context, I kind of threw them all out the window, and I don't really have many stats here to back up my picks. Instead, I have 3 main criteria. The first one is record, which I think obviously makes sense whenever we're talking about a power ranking. The second one is big wins and matchups, so big wins and losses, basically. And then the final one is a stat that I've made up that right now is subjective, but I'm going to start doing some research and trying to make this a little bit more objective. I call it playoff run potential, or PRP for short. And right now it's entirely vibes based on what I think. Coming in the future, maybe me and Jonathan might be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into what this means and seeing if we could objectively show what teams have true playoff run potential.
We've been discussing this somewhat, Adam. I do really think it would be fun if over the course of this show, you invent a statistic and I invent a statistic, and it's mostly BS, but we have just enough of a statistical formula. I'm looking forward to that. I think PRP.
Video last week, I tried with the whole, well, when a team loses to the Saints, they win the next week, and I have 2 data points. And yet the Buccaneers failed me.
I mean, hey, 2 out of 3 times.
I mean, I'm not some genius, but I can identify a pattern.
Well, let's get right into it. We don't know each other's picks, so we're going to be
No.
starting off just going 10 through 1. I'll hit you with the first one. This is the one team
Cool.
that honestly might not make the playoffs, and yet they are the 10th on my list. The Detroit Lions
They're
are
10
the
on my
10th
list as
in
well.
my really okay. I
They are.
thought that we might line up with them because they don't deserve to be any higher than number 10, but I would have a hard
Yeah.
time leaving them off my list purely because of their offensive potency. And that's what it comes down to. I may not have seen Jared Goff win a Super Bowl in the past, but I have seen him make one, and that counts for
True.
something. I have seen Dan Campbell coach really well. I have seen this offense go consistently for 30-plus points explosions, even in the playoffs, though they've come up short in recent years. I have to lock them in at my number 10, even if there are teams objectively above them in record right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first off, before I get into the Lions, and this is really directly to or related to the Lions, but some of the teams that I left to write off this list include the Chargers, 49ers, and Packers. I just want to put that out there. The reason why is because all of those teams have a higher percentage chance of making the playoffs than the Lions, which are currently have a 37% chance of making the playoffs, according to ESPN. And yet they are still number 10 on my list. But let's just go through my criteria. First off record, they're 8-6. So that automatically kind of makes them so that if they're on the list, they have to be 10th. The other thing too, is they really don't have a lot of big wins. They lost, or really the only big wins they have is to the Bears and the Bucks. And then the losses, they've lost to the Packers twice. They've lost to the Chiefs. They've lost to the Vikings, which is relevant just because of, 9. And they've lost to which I don't know if JJ McCarthy, no, he was playing that week.
They lost to the
and
Eagles.
Then they lost to the Rams and the Eagles. Exactly. And so, but all of that being said,
basically almost everyone that's ahead of them, they've lost to.
Yes. But they haven't played the teams that are ahead of them, except for the Packers, that are off my list, including the Chargers and the 49ers. And they are just a team that, according to PRP, rank fairly highly. I think that because of weirdly, they have a lot of
you can't
recent playoff
invent
history.
a stat, not establish it, and then say, according to PRP, you invented it 5 minutes ago.
I told you it's entirely subjective. It's all based on what I think. I told you, maybe in the future it'll be more objective. Maybe whenever they're starting, whenever it shows up on the broadcast, like how Next Gen Stats, and they have, the
yeah, they're going to have you
power
next to
rankings
Amazon
near the end
Adam.
of the season. Yeah, exactly. During the end of the season, it'll be Adam's PRP.
We're going to use our non-existent sponsorship money to get your stat on Thursday Night Football.
Listen, man, shout out to the listeners for pushing this.
We're going to get it on New Orleans Saints local radio.
The Saints do not have a high PRP, have a high ranking on the PRP index.
It's jumped dramatically in the last 2 weeks.
Listen, Tyler Shuck has really changed their output. Anyway, the point is that I do think that offensively that it provides just such a high floor, and especially when I'm looking at the matchups, right? That will definitely be something that a big aspect of PRP is who are the other teams in the playoffs, right? And when I'm looking at a lot of these teams, like I do think that they have a favorable matchup, and if it swings the right way, they can mess around and make the AFC or the NFC Championship if they make the playoffs, which is not that likely, apparently.
This can be said for teams that in records are above them. I would give them a fighting chance in any playoff matchup that they had.
Yeah.
Literally anyone, purely because of the offensive capabilities. I'll move to my number 9, a team that you already told me you left off your list, the Los Angeles Chargers. Here's the thing. Offensive line is decimated. Justin Herbert hasn't won a playoff game. And yet, I do just have to have them on this list purely because they are 10-4. They're still technically viable to win their division, and I have a hard time seeing them hosting a Lombardi. That's why they're this far down on my list, despite their record being better than multiple other teams ahead of them. But I can't offset the floor that Jim Harbaugh sets for a team allows them to be viable in most games that they play. Now, they can sink to the level of their opponent, but if they're on the road in the playoffs, that's actually not the worst thing in the world because some of the teams that they're playing might be better than them and they might rise to the level of their opponent. And so because of that, I'll throw the Chargers in at my number 9 spot.
Yeah, so for me, obviously they have the record. They have decent wins. They actually have quite a few good wins. For me, it's just their PRP is pretty low. One, just because of the injuries to their offensive line, and I think that provides a pretty low floor for their offensive output. And then secondly,
You do
just the
love an
historical
offensive line,
precedents.
don't you, Adam?
I do. The historical precedents of Justin Herbert in the playoffs, which I'm writing this down because I actually do want that to be part of my PRP metric.
By the end of this episode, we will have a very in-depth stat called PRP.
We will.
We're building it
We
live,
will. Historical
folks. Tune in.
QB success.
Yes,
I'm writing
I
that
like
down.
this.
That's a big aspect of the PRP analysis. The
We know
PRP
that and offensive line.
index. Oh yeah, let me write that down. No, I'm making the stat as we go, and it's
Adam, go ahead and give me your
People are gonna be
number
talking
9
about this.
while you invent a
Yeah,
statistic.
At number 9, I have the Eagles. Right now they're 9-5. So obviously they have to be on the list, and by credence of them like basically guaranteeing a spot in the playoffs because of their division, I feel like they have to be on this list. Some of their big wins, they actually do have really impressive wins, including the Rams, the Bucks, the Lions, the Packers. Their losses are pretty tough. They lost to the Broncos, Bears, and Chargers. But a lot of this has to do with the PRP, which is the fact that one, their offense is dookie, is what I wrote down. We've talked about this before, but they just do not run the ball effectively. They don't attack the middle of the field, and when they do, it's terrible. And all they have is the deep ball. And when when that doesn't work, you have situations like how the Eagles played against the Chargers, where Jalen Hurts throws 4 interceptions, and on one play throws an interception, picks up the fumble after the interception, and then fumbles it again. And this is too remnant.
You're not helping your case for them
season.
being number 9. You're actually helping the case that, like I have, they are not on my list.
Oh. Hey, dude, it's just the record. The point is that they just seem to be on a downward trajectory. I'm not going to get fooled by them beating the Raiders 31-0.
Yes.
So it's just as simple as that. Like, I just don't trust their offensive output, and I think that they have a great defense, but it's going to get them in trouble in the playoffs.
This is the thing that I've said. They could easily finish the season 12-5, given how easy the remaining schedule is, and I will not be fooled by them. I don't have them on my list. I don't have faith in the offensive output, and I don't care what the PRP metric says in terms of their offensive line quality and their historical QB precedent. It does not outweigh other factors that will eventually go into the statistics.
Exactly.
I'll go ahead and give my number 8 team, at one point relatively recently, the number 1 seed in the NFC and the NFL. The Chicago Bears are my number 8
They're my 8 team as well.
Wow, we line up 2 of the 3 so far. We've lined up, Adam. Chicago Bears. This is something where I am favoring their record, and I do legitimately like pretty much everything about this team except for the man throwing the ball. And that's not because I don't have long-term faith in Caleb Williams, but as Adam has said multiple times throughout the offseason and this season, will say it again. This is not a constructive season for Caleb Williams. This is a destructive season, unlearning literally everything that he did in his rookie season. And so because
Yeah.
of that, I think that puts an inherent cap at what he can do. Don't be fooled by the fact that he has like 6 game-winning drives this season. Only one of those is real. I've been harping on this statistic. He's had multiple
That's
game-winning
so
drives
funny.
this season where he hasn't thrown the football. Yes. So, as a result of that, they're on my list. They're number 8. I couldn't conceivably I mean, I guess this is the point where I should say that literally number 6 through hypothetically number 13 on this list could really be interchangeable for me.
Yeah, probably.
And so this is felt about right. They're certainly not as high as like
Well,
5 or 6, but they
and
can't
that's
be like outside of here. I averaged it out.
yeah, no, and I think that's where PRP comes in, because when you look at it, they're
You
10 and
need
4.
to
Their biggest win
stop
is
with
against.
this.
I won't. Uh, their big win is the Eagles. They've lost to the Packers, Lions, Vikings, and Ravens, which is not good. Here's what I have in terms of ranking them on the PRP index. Very nice is their ranking. Uh, their run game is
Okay.
dominant.
Yes.
DeAndre Swift.
Yes.
Sometimes I just like for some reason question people's
Okay,
names.
can I
even
say
though,
this
like,
right
I'm
now for the
right.
listeners at home? Adam knows ball objectively, but sometimes his brain does silly little things and he forgets like just starting running backs for
Todd
NFL
Bowles.
contenders. Todd
Todd
Bowles.
Bowles. I said Garrett Bowles. No, I said Nick Bowles. That's why Nick
Nick
Foles, but
Bowles.
Bowles. I just get confused sometimes.
No, Swift and Manungai have been an incredible
Dogs.
combo.
Dogs. So yeah, my notes for PRP. Very nice run game, sexy O-line, high turnovers. I think that provides a really good floor.
Yeah,
For them,
and you
and
have
I
Ben
think they can mess
Johnson.
around and win a playoff game. Yeah.
Yeah. Offensive ceiling is kind of there, and the defense is good enough. It kind of averages out across the board to number 8. So since we lined up, I'll move on to my number 7. I think, Adam, this
By the
may
way,
be. Oh, go ahead.
I just got to say, I'm adding to the PRP index is historical coordinator success.
And coaching, like just coaching staff success, or specifically coordinators?
By coordinator, I mean like play callers.
Oh, play callers. Yeah. Okay. Fair. Offensive and defensive play callers.
Yep.
I think from what you implied earlier, Adam, this may be the biggest difference in our list. At number 7, I have the Green Bay Packers, and you do not have them on your list. I'm more so interested to hear your analysis, but I'll say right now, I did make this factoring in and knowing the unfortunate news of Micah Parsons' season ending Achilles injury. I don't really know exactly how to justify this other than I think that despite the injuries, the offensive line play of Green Bay has been competent enough. And despite the fact that they gave up Bo Nix's best game of his career on defense, I just have a weird feeling about this team. I'll leave it at that. This is the team that I have the least analysis on for as high as they are. I have more faith that I could witness Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur host a Lombardi than I do Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson or Jared Goff and now I'm doing it, Adam. You're rubbing off on me. My goodness.
Dan Campbell?
Dan Campbell, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're just ruining my life, Adam. Yeah, I just
Oh,
have more faith that they could hoist a Lombardi.
Yeah, my biggest thing for the Packers is just the loss of Micah Parsons. This is a problem, dude. I don't know if I'm cut out for this whole thing. Micah Parsons, the biggest thing for them, like, and we've talked about this, and it's just as simple as, you need 3 things. If you're a franchise starting today, the 3 things that you would want is your quarterback, your head coach, and a pass rusher.
Hmm.
And, one of the reasons why we were so high on the Packers, I feel like
Is that they had two and a
you were
half of them.
definitely high. But yeah, they had two and a half of them. And the way that Jordan Love has been playing up until this game, it was like, nope, they have all three. Like they totally could make a run at this. They lost Micah Parsons. And so I'm looking at this saying there's really no meaningful difference between their team from this year and last year, other than Jordan Love could potentially play better.
I'm
And
factoring in this 7 with a little bit of blind faith in Jordan Love maintaining the
yeah,
level of play that he's had. That, like, if it's not there, they could drop to like the 12th or 13th on this list. I'm being objectively
the,
optimistic with the Packers.
the biggest thing though that kept them off the list for me was the Christian Watson injury.
That's
I just
100%.
read a report that says that it's not as bad as we thought. It didn't say a timeline. So maybe it's not a big deal. And, maybe tomorrow I'd say, no, I should probably put them on my list somewhere. The reason why is because what Jordan Love does really well, he's really good at the deep ball. And
So
specifically, like I said, like the fadeaway, weird, like off balance, just drop the ball in the bucket type play has been really, really
kind of
successful for him.
when he does it, he looks like Walk It To Him Wentz. Old Carson back in the
He
day.
kind of does. Yeah, no. And the beneficiary of the vast majority of those types of plays have been Christian Watson. And
Mhm.
so, if he comes back and he's fine, I think they'd be on my list, higher on my list, but just because of those two big injuries, and then obviously Tucker Kraft is a big injury. It's
Yeah.
really unfortunate that their best pass rusher and most consistent catcher of the ball both tore their ACLs, but it
Listen,
is what it
man,
is.
they're high on the imaginary statistic that I have yet to come up with. Give me your number 7.
My number 7 is the Texans, which is
Wow.
crazy
So I also don't
because
have them on my list. So we
interesting.
completely have number 7s that aren't on the other person's list.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The Texans and early back to the beginning of this whole thing, right? With the offseason, I have been so vocal about how I think the Texans
Okay,
have
Adam,
failed
give me right
CJ
now.
Stroud.
You have 3 current factors for PRP created. Give me one of them that the Texans complete.
So I have 3 factors that I've written down. Well, first off, historical QB success could definitely be one. CJ Stroud has played well in the playoffs. But no, here. So let me just get my stuff off. All right. So the Texans are 9-5, and like I said, the biggest thing that I've noticed with them or that I've talked about with them, is their offensive line, which is not news. Like everyone knows, their offensive line sucks, and even though they've been playing better recently, a lot of that just has to do with the fact that they're playing worse pass rushes. But let me just go down the list. Their big wins include the 49ers, the Bills, the Colts, the Chiefs, which have all come recently. Their big losses include the Rams, the Bucks, the Jags, the Seahawks, and the Broncos. I would say basically all of those teams, the biggest consistent factor is the biggest consistent factor between all those teams is that they have an incredible pass rush. Here's one thing I want to note though. In that list, Rams, Bucks, Jags, Seahawks, Broncos, which keep in mind that they've beaten the Jags. They split the series with them. 4 of those 5 teams are in the NFC.
That's a fair
And
point.
so when I look at the PRP index, what it tells me is the fact, and this is probably something I'm going to add to it, it tells me the fact that of all the teams within the playoffs, there's only one pass rush that scares me from the Texans' perspective, and that's the Broncos. On top of that, fortunately enough for us, we have a Texans-Broncos game this season where the Broncos barely won. It was, as they do, 18-15.
I mean,
So I'm not saying that I would take the Texans in that game. All I'm saying is that until they play the Broncos, I think that they have a really, really good chance against any of these teams.
that's fair. I guess it's more
Because
of
of
a
their
comment on the
defensive
AFC, but
It is. And right. And so that's why I'm saying, like, the way I'm measuring this, like, PRP is
here's what I'll say though,
I'm
because
I'm
based
making
off
this
what
top 10 ranking.
based off of what I have, technically, even though they're number 7 for you and they're off my list, the only difference really is that I just have one AFC team ahead of them, the Chargers, because I'm
Right.
assuming off of everyone that I'm looking at, you also have them on the list. It would be shocking if you didn't.
Who?
Uh, well, you have the Jags on the list, right?
Yes.
Okay, then yes. So literally the only
Oh, okay.
team that I have ahead of the Texans that you don't in
Yes,
the
yes, yes. I
AFC
see what
is
you
the
mean.
Chargers.
Is the Chargers,
That's
right.
all. That's if we look at the AFC playoffs. I mean, what I'm kind of saying is that I think that at the end of the day, you still think that a lot of the AFC is better than the Texans,
Yes,
but
100%.
you're just giving them a puncher's chance in a weaker conference.
Absolutely.
I can respect
Yeah,
that.
no,
I
they
get
would
that.
be off this list if they were in the NFC, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I get that. And that's a factor of this. A ranking
Mhm,
right now is also based on your Super Bowl viability. That's what we're looking at. But
mhm.
I'll go ahead and move on to my number 6. Speaking of which, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I have the
What?
Jacksonville Jaguars at
Oh
6
my
too.
goodness, dude.
This
We're
is so
lining
weird.
up on all of the even numbers. This is
Oh, we sure
incredible.
are, aren't we?
10, 8, and 6. We got the
Yeah,
Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, we mentioned it multiple times in previous pods. Adam, you should have bought all of the stock when you could. You planted the
yeah.
seeds on Liam Cohen early in the offseason. You couldn't pull the
I love
trigger on
Liam
this
Cohen,
year,
man.
though. Liam Cohen's fantastic. Trevor Lawrence is objectively, over these last 5 weeks, playing the best football of his life, even better than the second half of his second-year season.
Mhm.
That young defense is doing just enough. Earlier in the season, they were carrying, and now the offense is putting them in a position where the defense doesn't have to
Yep.
completely carry the game for them. I mean, we can repeat things that we've said, but my goodness, the mid-season trade, Adam, you can take away the analysis from here.
Yeah, they're 10-4. They have big wins against the Chargers, Colts, Texans, and Chiefs. It's funny because their big losses include the Texans, Rams, and Seahawks. But again, other than the Texans who they split with, the Rams and Seahawks are in a different conference. And so when I'm looking at PRP, what I'm looking at is a situation where I think that there are not a lot of teams that their offensive coordinator or their coach, their offensive play caller isn't going to out scheme the defensive play caller. And the truth is that, and I talked about this in our most recent pod episode, but Jacoby Myers has totally settled Trevor Lawrence in. He has a guy that he can consistently throw the ball to. They have a guy who can consistently attack the intermediate middle part of the field,
I mean,
and that
since
is
acquiring
completely
him, he's gotten the plurality of the targets. That's crazy.
23%. Yeah. And so it really is just as simple as Jacoby Myers is the one missing piece that this offense needed. And it's shifted Brian Thomas Jr. exactly to where he needs to be within an offense. A lot of people were like, "Ooh, people, he was just hype, he was fake, yada yada yada." No, he was
No.
being put in position that he is not meant to be put in. And when you put him in the correct position, all of a sudden he looks incredible. And so all of that being said, and then on top of that, they're always going to have a run game simply because of Liam Cohen and the way that he uses angles to his advantage. And I've talked about this before. Let me just nerd out a little bit because Ben Johnson, the way that he creates advantages in the run game is with the numbers. Like basically, he says that even when you stack the box, I'm going to have another guy where the ball is going to be. And then he uses that to create sets that feed into the passing game. Liam Cohen says, I'm going to use the motion more, and like both coordinators do this, but Liam Cohen more uses the motion to create advantages with angles. So for example, he commonly uses a motion in order to shift the defense one way, and then he runs the opposite direction, and basically says that even if we don't have the numbers advantage, your guys are in a bad position to cover this run. And that just provides such a high floor for their run game and their offense as a whole that when Trevor Lawrence can get going, which we've seen him do recently, this provides a high ceiling for this offense. And like you said, the defense can do just enough. And even though this was more of an early season trend, they do have the ability to turn the ball over a lot and very well and effectively in crucial moments. And so I'm looking at this team and I'm like, they have to be they can't be lower than 6 on my list.
Okay. No, I appreciate your nerd out moment. That was good stuff there, Adam. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. I don't feel better about them than any of the teams ahead of my list. kind of,
Yeah.
with the exception of one, but there's a lot there. And in fact, they're my
Yeah.
number 5 team, the Denver Broncos.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Go
I
ahead.
mean, dude, I'm putting them at top 5. What else do you want from me?
I
Bo
guess you're
Nix
right.
is their quarterback. I'm calling them a top 5 contender in the NFL right now. And we can
Okay.
get into the teams that are ahead of them when I get to them, because I don't want to spoil who's ahead of them right away and in the exact order. But no, the defense is just the best. The pass rush is the best. I don't care. Like, when the statistics come down to it, that's the thing. Not all statistics are created evenly. It also matters situationally and who you've been playing. I'll take the
Mhm.
Denver pass rush pretty much against anyone except for maybe Houston. But no, not really. When you combine that with their secondary, give me Denver. And so, having said all that, you think, wow, surely if this team had just a competent offense, they would be at least top 2. But here's the rub, folks. Bo Nix is their quarterback. And I don't know if you know about Bo Nix, if you were at home. Bo Nix is actually bad at playing quarterback. And for my version of PRP, when you factor in that they have a dirty, scheming, conniving head coach, they are, of course,
Super Bowl winning.
head hunting. Well, I can go back and forth with your compliments and my pejoratives. We
Okay.
can have a Sean Payton conversation right now.
Okay.
But no, I mean, literally, riding the coattails of Drew Brees. But
All right, pal.
no, my thoughts on the Denver Broncos are well known if you're a viewer of the show, and if you weren't, now you know my thoughts on the Denver Broncos. They are the 5th in my power rankings, which is a heavy
Sounds good.
compliment.
All right, I'll talk about them when I get to them. At number 5, I have the Patriots. They're
Okay.
11-3, big wins against the Bills and the Bucks, and then losses to the Bills and the Steelers. I think that is really where they fall, even though they have such a great record. Is the fact that, and again, I've been saying this all year. They have an easy schedule, yes. In the context of just asking ourselves, is this a good team? Is this a real team? Should they be considered contenders? Absolutely, because they've won all the games that they should, which teams oftentimes do not do. However, in the context of we're power ranking them as contenders, that conversation, I think it does matter. The
That's fair.
fact that, all these teams have at least 3 or 4 teams in the win column, other than the Bears, but, they're lower than them. At least the teams ahead of them have a lot more teams in the win column, in the losses column, whatever. Basically the only wins they have is against the Bills and the Bucks, and then they mess around and lost to the Bills, and they lost to the Steelers early on. That one doesn't really count because it was so early in the season. Obviously Drake May is incredible. I think that they are somewhat of a question mark with their PRP. The reason why is because when you have a quarterback who's never made the playoffs, it's always like, what do we do?
As I have said, I view that as not an overwhelming positive, but a slight positive, because he doesn't have any ghosts to be dealing with.
Sure. Right. And I'm totally with that. I still think it creates question marks, especially when I look at the teams that they could potentially be facing. I like the Patriots. I like Drake May. I gotta see it to believe it in the playoffs. Not to believe it. That's not true, because I do think that they're viable for the Super Bowl. Like, I do think that they really do. They have a chance, right? I'm not going to say they don't. They're 5th on my list. It's just that I think that there are more established teams. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
and so this is less about them being 5th, is less about them and more about the teams ahead of them.
Okay. Well, I have them at my number 4. I'll go ahead and say that. My discussion on the Patriots is this. I might have had them lower, and in fact, as weird as it is, after watching them lose to the Bills,
yeah, me too.
That was actually something that did edge them out against the Broncos. And the reason why is that I saw the vision of what I predicted earlier in the season, or in the offseason, and it's finally coming to fruition, the run game. Travion Henderson can finally provide an explosive burst on top of the passing threat of Drake May. Drake May, he's not a mobile quarterback in the sense of like power rushing as much as Josh Allen, but he can scramble if he needs to, and he is accurate and powerful on the run. And that way he is just like a Josh Allen prototype. He can be rolling to his left and be throwing across his body and put power on the ball like you didn't know was possible. I just also love Vrabel. I love Vrabel in a
Me too.
playoff game. I just like him situationally. I think the offensive line has probably been the thing that's vastly exceeded the most expectations. And that young defense, I mean, you got a cornerback number one, you've got CB1, Christian Gonzalez. I just like so many different things about this team. The combination of them being young, but having the veteran head coaching presence of Mike Vrabel, a man who's been to an AFC championship game. I don't know. They edged out the Broncos barely. I was
Well,
legitimately fighting with myself at this 4 and 5 spot.
listen, you want to talk about PRP, the metric of historical play caller success. They rank highly in that metric with Josh McDaniels as their offensive
I mean,
coordinator.
it could be said that their offensive play caller has the highest PRP rating conceivable. Literally, the only person who might be competing with him is Steve Spagnuolo as a defensive coordinator.
Right. And then Vrabel also ranks high on that metric with this.
I mean, if you had a coaching
and if you want to
staff
talk about him as a player,
that's on PRP too. How good was your head coach if he was a former player? I mean, Andy Reid, have you seen the clips of him as a teenager in the punt pass kick?
Just a dog, dude.
What a dog. But no, I mean, as a little tangent, could you imagine, would a team that had Josh McDaniels as its OC and Steve Spagnuolo as its DC even need a head coach? Like, put Jerry Jones on the sideline being the head coach of a team that has Josh McDaniels and Steve Spagnuolo as its coordinators. My goodness.
Oh my gosh, dude. Dan Campbell, imagine.
Oh,
Dan Campbell with Spagnola. They might win, dude.
the blood in my body is rushing downwards. I just have to be honest with you. That thought did excite me.
Okay. With that in mind, no, not with that in mind, completely transitioning away from that. Forget that was in your mind. Let's think about one more thing. No, the Patriots, Josh McDaniels, like to your point about the run game, sneakily enough, Josh McDaniels is also one of those coordinators that provides a floor with their run game. Let me just throw in my anti-Tom Brady takes and say that a lot of the teams where, a lot of the Super Bowl winning teams that the Patriots had, the run game was a big part of that. The 28-3 comeback, let's talk about James White. Like,
I do love the fact that I'm the resident Chiefs fans, and yet you do far more Brady dissing on the show than I do. I do respect that. We need more people out there who aren't actively like entangled in a GOAT debate who just definitively agree with one side of it. Like the fact that you are a fan out there that's not like a Joe Montana guy or a Mahomes guy and you just don't like Brady is awesome.
Well, I mean, dude, the numbers don't lie. Like I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I can't. Anyway, whatever.
Give me your number 4 team, Adam.
Yeah, at number 4, I have the Seahawks. The Seahawks were number 4 on my list. This is again where it's like the top 3 teams just kind of had to be there. What is it? I love the Seahawks so much. They're my favorite team to watch. Nick Emanwari makes me feel a certain type of way about the game of football. The Seahawks are 11-3. Big wins include Texans, Jags. Their losses include the Rams and the Bucks. But for me, Mike McDonald, dude. And I know you were on this before I was, and I will openly admit that. Oh, he's so good.
I love him so much.
He's so good. That defense is so incredible. And, the offense, they struggled against the Colts, whatever. They are so good. And I'm looking at this playoff matchup. I'm looking at the playoffs. And I legitimately feel like I would take the Seahawks in every matchup except for against the Rams.
That's 100%. In fact, I can go ahead and we can take this off, as a combo. I have the Seahawks at my number 3. I do legitimately. I just Mike McDonald. As I've been saying, and I've stamped this before, but I'll say it now for the folks. The NFC West is the best head coaching division in football.
Oh yeah.
You have Sean McVay, Mike McDonald,
And Kyle
Jonathan Gannon
Shanahan.
happens to be there, and then Kyle Shanahan.
Well, and yeah, you see that with the the 49ers somehow magically by the power
Yeah.
of Robert Saleh's jackness. Like, I don't know. Just his
No, I mean,
shiny bald head somehow.
it is the Seahawks. And here's the thing.
For some reason, I just had this thought of like in like a dome, like Saleh like pointing his head, like using the
Like, to
lights to like
flash the
blind
quarterback.
the quarterback.
It's like in the 2018 AFC Championship game that I attended, Chiefs versus Patriots. I don't know if you remember this. They had to momentarily suspend the game because someone was
I
laser
remember that.
pointering Tom Brady. It was so awesome. We were going nuts at Arrowhead, dude. We were like anything we can to take out Tom. Unfortunately, he molested us in overtime.
Yeah.
But Mahomes never got the ball.
Yeah. Do you know what they did? You know what he did?
What?
He handed the ball off, but we can move on.
Well, and he also threw slants to Gronkowski.
Yeah, that's it, dude. Anyway, whatever. Like,
Mr. Slant Boy himself.
Exactly.
But
Anyway.
no, the Seahawks, the biggest thing that keeps them out of my top 2, and there is a bit of a drop off between my top 2 teams in this, is Sam Darnold. Like, in fact, it is rather impressive that I have them at my 3, considering how hard
real.
of a time I have seen Sam Darnold hoist a Lombardi, which is so much of a comment on Mike McDonald. I cannot stress that enough. I think he is the best defensive coach in the NFL, and I think that Sean McVay is the best offensive coach and overall head coach in the NFL. That's my number 3 team, Adam.
Perfect. That can lead to my number 3 team, the Bills. The Bills are 10-4. They have big wins against the Ravens, Chiefs, Pats, and Bucks. They've also lost the Pats and the Texans. The truth is that Josh Allen will be the best quarterback in the AFC going into the playoffs, and with the most playoff experience. And there is only one team that is well, actually technically 2, but no, really one consistently that has beaten them, and it's the Chiefs. Right? Got to throw in, the Bengals beating them in Orchard Park, whatever.
That's true.
The point
In
is
unfavorable elements.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Joe Burrow is balling, but we can move on. Josh Allen, man, he's just so good. And I think that once again, this game against the Patriots, this Bills Patriots game elevated both the Bills and the Patriots in my mind.
100%.
In that they solidified what I think they are as a team, which is the 5th and 3rd best teams within the NFL. The Bills,
for me, it's the 4th and 2nd.
There you go. So the Bills, they're just so good. And the way that they adapted to the Patriots, really smartly, and Vrabel, all credit to Vrabel and what he was able to do with that defense, limiting Josh Allen, the way that they were able to respond with the run game and incorporating the tight ends in the red zone and Kincaid and Knox was just so impressive. And it wasn't even the fact that they made the comeback, because like I'd feel this way even if they lost. It's the way that they adapted to a scheme that clearly limited their offense. It's something they weren't, and it's one of those things where it's like, before, when they lost stupid games, like against the Texans and the Falcons, and even the Dolphins, they didn't even really try to do this. And now we see a situation where a defense is able to limit Josh Allen. They force the turnovers, they're able to get pressure. That's exactly how the Falcons and the Texans beat them. And in response, they handed the ball off, and that worked incredibly well, as you would predict, because when you commit so many resources to stop Josh Allen, there's not a lot of resources left to stop the run. And so the fact that they made that change, and even when they were down by like 20 points, they still had a expected pass, or what it was, an ADOT expected. No, that's an average depth of target. They basically passed the ball like not at all. They ran the ball the whole time. My point
There
is
you
the
go.
fact that we saw that is growth. My gosh.
Yes.
Ugh. But I got there.
I mean, I'll go ahead and say I have them as my number 2 team. You're going to have a hard time justifying to me why the Denver Broncos are out of them. This is the best
Okay.
quarterback in the AFC. And at this point, given the lower quality of the other AFC quarterbacks or unprovenness, I'm just going to take that. I believe that Josh Allen, now that Mahomes is not in his path, is going to make the Super Bowl. That's officially where I'm at as of right now. And so, listen, the only thing holding them back, and really the thing that on PRP of the metrics that we've invented so far that holds them back is their head coach. Sean
Yeah.
McDermott is probably the biggest thing holding them back. But if Joe Brady can make adjustments like he just did in that Patriots game, then they still might be viable. Will they be viable to win the Super Bowl against the team that I have ahead of them? Probably not. Maybe even some teams from the NFC that I have below them. Potentially not. But it's good enough to get them out of the AFC. And for that, I have the
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills at my number 2 spot.
Yeah, so then we can just go head straight into it. At number 2, I have the Broncos. So here's the thing. I started this video by saying I have 3 main metrics that I'm looking at. The first one is record, the second one is big wins and matchups, and the third one is PRP. And while PRP is definitely the biggest stat that I made up that I'm looking at to rank these teams, the truth is I believe that the Broncos in the other 2 actual objective metrics have a better, are more favored when it comes to like a strict power ranking. The first one is their big wins. They've beaten the Eagles, the Texans, the Chiefs, and the Packers. Whereas I think that's more impactful than the Bills' big wins, which is to the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Pats, and the Bucks. And then obviously the Bills have a lot more ugly losses. The 2 losses that the Colts had that the Broncos had were against the Colts early in the season when the Colts were rolling, and it was a really close game, and to the Chargers, which was same situation. The Chargers were rolling, and it was a very close game. It was a walk-off field goal that they ended up losing that game because of. And so, in terms of PRP, again, this is similar to the Texans. That defense just carries so hard. And here's the problem. And this is kind of why the Texans rank so highly and were even on my list to begin with, is that there's really only one offense that I feel like can put up a good amount of points against the Broncos, and that's the Bills. And yet I'm still not really that confident in it. I'll say this. The Broncos are ahead of the Bills because of the other 2 metrics that are not PRP. In the playoffs, I would take the Bills because of Josh Allen. But if the Broncos won, I would not be shocked even a little bit. Because I think that the Broncos are a team that has the interior force to be able to stop the run while also limiting Josh Allen. And if it is a close, slow-scoring game, I think that I think that Bo Nix can play just good enough, even if it's in the fourth quarter, to win that game. 1, 2, the Bills just don't really have that good of a defense.
That's fair. Here's what I'll say, and this will be the one point that I'll say on it besides what I've already said, which is I don't see anything that has happened by the time that they would hypothetically, face each other, a full calendar year between, that could make me forget about the 31-7 result that happened last season. I get it. I legitimately think that if the Bills and the Broncos play each other, I just think the Bills will outplay them. And I will have to see it to believe it. And maybe that's leaning too much on historical precedent, but it's relatively recent historical precedent. Plus,
The thing
just
that
me.
changed is that the Bills' defense has gotten worse, and the Broncos' defense has gotten significantly better.
Simultaneously, in one sense, if
And
we just
arguably the
throw
Bills'
out
offense has gotten worse too.
fair, if we also say removing this one sample size, even though it's the most recent thing, the Broncos' offense has gotten worse.
True.
So
By
I
one
think
sample size, do you mean the entire season up until this point?
no, I mean throwing out the one sample size of Bo Nix playing well last week against the Packers.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant.
Sure.
That out of the way, even though it's the most recent thing that happened, I do think even if the
Listen.
Broncos have definitely closed the margins, I don't know if they've done it enough for when they face each other, because I think unless the Broncos lose before this point, I think we are destined for this matchup.
Well,
And
to be honest with you, I think that this is a divisional matchup. I think if I were to
probably
bet
is.
money on it, I would assume that the Bills are going to, off of the bye, be playing the Broncos in Denver in the divisional round.
That's very likely.
Or sorry, the Broncos off of the bye, because they'll win the AFC.
And that'll also be interesting. Broncos are going to be in position in the classic rest versus rust question, more likely than not, assuming they have the 1 seed. Yeah. I mean, we could go back and forth on this thing. At the end of the day, we both think these are the 2 best teams in the AFC, and we think that the AFC runs through one of these teams. So, we don't disagree that much. And now we arrive.
Keep in mind, I did predict the Bills to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season.
Don't keep in mind that I predicted the Ravens. Although that's still technically a lie, folks.
It can happen. You never know.
Folks, I literally football karma myself. I reverse psychologied because everyone thought, we're starting a podcast. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I faked out Adam. If this is your first time watching us, my prediction for this season was the Ravens beating the Lions in the Super Bowl.
Well, I promise.
I
Mine
promise
was the
I know
Bills
some
beating
ball.
the Bucks.
Technically, both of these equations are still alive.
Yeah, you never know. It could happen.
You never know. But we arrive. We've delayed the inevitable. The unanimous polling of 2 top team in the NFL, led by the best head coach in the league, in my opinion, and the quarterback who's been playing like the best quarterback in the NFL this season, the Los Angeles Rams.
I have the Buccaneers. Oh. No, I have the
Rams. Todd Bowles,
Dude,
the
Todd
best
Bowles,
head coach.
Dude, you guys just don't see the vision.
After I just explicitly called for his job in our most recent episode, the best head coach in the NFL.
Listen, I starkly disagree. No, the Rams are clear and away the number 1 team in the NFL. And if I had to bet money on it, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm leaning to a Rams-Bills Super Bowl, but the Rams is by far the more certain of those picks for me out of the NFC.
What would, and because we agree on this, I just want to go on this tangent. At, how old is he? 37? Matthew Stafford, 38?
That's a good question. We should probably know this off the top of our head.
He's 37. Yeah, 37. I was right. He's 37.
He would hypothetically, if he made the
Matthew
Super Bowl,
Stafford,
he would turn 38, I think, the day of the Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl might be on Matthew Stafford's birthday.
That's pretty epic. The point is, what would a MVP and Super Bowl MVP season do to Matthew Stafford's legacy?
I mean, it would shoot him up into legitimately, as we've mentioned before, top 10 quarterback of all time discussions.
Yeah.
If he has 2 Super Bowls and MVP, I mean, no, he would you would start to have the Dan Marino or, where do you put him there? Is he above of Steve Young? Like some of these guys.
Now, I legitimately think the only thing stopping him from doing that is Puka Nacua going for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
I do think that the voters, after already having given it to Cooper Kupp previously, even if...
You think they would just...
I think I think if Matthew Stafford wins the Super Bowl, unless it's something where it's like a run fest, he throws for like sub 200 yards and 3 interceptions and they win somehow, if they win, it goes to Matthew Stafford.
Do you know what pisses me off about the Rams? The fact that the Rams beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, and since then the Rams have done an entirely full rebuild, and the Bengals have done literally a, not rebuild, a we're going to slowly blah, 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 blah. And the Bengals have the worst defense in the league with more draft picks, keep in mind, because the Rams traded every draft pick they had for like 3 seasons
that's the thing. They've
in
done
order
a full
to get the
rebuild,
team.
and they're walking
With
into this
worse
next
draft
season.
capital. Yeah, with worse draft capital, they have one of the least paid defenses in the NFL while also being one of the top defenses in the NFL, and yet they are the number 1 team in the NFL, and the Bengals were just eliminated from the Super Bowl. That pisses me off to no end. But anyway,
I mean, they might win the Super Bowl and
th-
walk into the 2026 NFL draft with a top 10 pick in the Atlanta Falcons.
I know, it freaking that's so, dude, the Rams, they just know ball. Like Matthew Stafford, Super Bowl winning quarterback. You have Sean McVay, who a young Sean McVay, who in his
He hasn't
early
even
career,
turned 40.
in his early career has made the Super Bowl with Jared Goff based off an incredible offensive scheme centered around Todd Gurley. Let's not forget, shout out Todd Gurley. He's won the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. I said that as if there's a third thing with my tone and inflection, but there isn't. And so basically what my point is that Sean McVay's messed around and attended 2 Super Bowls, and he's not even 40 yet.
I mean, he's not even 40 yet. I guess you could add into there what you've already said, which is the fact that he's done both of those things and simultaneously heading into this year, between this year and the previous Super Bowl victory, done a full rebuild.
Oh my gosh, it's just so.
I mean, he's the best head coach in the NFL. The fact is that they have Matthew Stafford, they have Puka Nacua, they have a young, ferocious defense. I mean, Jared Verse is a monster. Top 5 O-line. Jared Verse is a monster.
Byron Young is playing out of his mind. Honestly, the biggest thing that's really their secondary is almost playing a little bit streaky as of late, but they've been doing enough. And their adjustments at halftime have been incredible, like we talked about in the most recent pod episode related to the Lions game. They're by far and away the best team within the NFL, and anyone who doesn't have them number 1 on their power rankings just doesn't know ball. Here's the other thing. They're 11-3, and their all 3 losses, they just like objectively played better than the team that they lost to. And just through stupid, dumb crap lost, right? You want to talk about the Eagles? 2 blocked field goals. You want to talk about the 49ers? A dumb decision by Sean McVay to run the ball right up the gut. Dumb turnovers. Kyron Williams was punched in the face and ended up fumbling the ball on the goal line. Like, that was a game where the 49ers, Mac Jones, Kyle Shanahan, whatever, but like the Rams had control of that game and they blew it in the end. And then finally, you talk about the Panthers. It was just high leverage plays and turnovers that really sold for them.
Yeah,
like
Bryce Young has his 1 game a season where he looks really good and is going to trick people into giving him a second contract.
Right. The point is that the pulling off, as we like to call it around here, the Tua Tagovailoa. The point is that their 3 losses, they looked like the better team, and that just happens in the NFL. They're the best team in the NFL. They have the best wins. Their losses were dumb. They're 11-3. They're probably going to win the NFC.
I mean, Adam,
there's not much
right
to say.
now, what would you say is the likelihood of the Chicago Bears winning the Super Bowl?
Maybe 1%.
Maybe 1%. Okay. We don't like many of the teams that are on this list. I actively regret putting the Packers at 7, but I also, was very generous with the Denver Broncos, putting them at number 5. They could have easily been off of my list. I'm just trolling at him at this point. I'm just having a good time. Folks, I had the objectively superior rankings, but we lined up on a lot of ones, and on the ones that we lined up with, Adam, Adam was right.
Agreed.
No. With the exception of the Broncos, we were pretty much right in line. We've, of course, had some situational disagreements about the Packers and the Texans, but I think we hashed that out. And
Well, and after that, it really was just like I was one behind everyone on your list. Like
because I
from 5
offset
down.
with the Broncos. Yeah.
Yeah.
With that, folks, if you enjoyed this list, if you have an alternate list, please let us know in the comments. Tell it to us. I will mercilessly criticize it. Don't even come to us with some, Broncos are the best team in the NFL because they have the #1 best record in the NFL. If you wanted the standings, you can check ESPN.com. If you want actual analysis, you can watch this show.
The actual analysis and metric that I just made up on the spot.
That is actual analysis, folks. Tune in for more made-up statistics.
All right, guys. See you later. Comment, subscribe, like. It's been fun. Peace.
Peace.